Well, the big issue has been that the NDIS is really focused on the most severe levels of need with each disability group. In mental illness, that's people with severe mental illness, which is pretty persistent, and severe levels of disability in all areas of life. And that's great. That's what they call Tier 3. Our big issue has not been about Tier 3, which is a huge piece of unfinished work in Australia. Trying to get those people a decent level of care has eluded most of us. There's probably over 50,000 people like that in Australia, and at the moment less than 10,000 get a decent deal. Our problem is that in the agreement by the various states and the Commonwealth to fund that, it's becoming clearer and clearer that they are using money from other people who are less severely affected by mental illness, and that's threatening to close down a lot of services around Australia. You're threatening to end up doing something that, if you were talking about the wider health system, would be like closing down community health centres to build some new emergency departments. It's that sort of concentration that's got us worried that the implementation of the NDIS was meant to be adding a new element, not removing an element. Look, I've talked with a number of people who've got packages of care in the Hunter area of New South Wales, and I'm hearing secondhand lots of stories and seeing people talk at conferences. For those who've gone through the process and found that their eligibility is okay and have got allocated a package of care, there are some really good stories. There are some issues around it, like you've probably gathered if you've been at this conference that there's a huge issue in mental health around having to declare yourself to be permanently disabled. This is something that all of us are uncomfortable about, but it's part of the NDIS legislation. Because people who have a mental illness are all focused on recovering a decent quality of life. They don't want to say, I have a permanent disability. So that's been an issue, but there are lots of good news stories starting to emerge. I would be confident within a couple of years there'll be 5,000 to 10,000 people who will have got onto good packages of care in Tier 3 of the NDIS with severe mental illness, and I'm confident most of the stories will be good ones. Well, people obviously enjoy, once they get through the process of declaring themselves permanently disabled and getting a current medical diagnosis, which is quite an access barrier for some people. They don't like getting that. Once they get through that process, they find they have much more choice and control than they've ever had before over saying what it is they would like to concentrate on. Whether that be on employment or on social life or on rebuilding family relationships or support for their accommodation. There's a whole lot of areas of life that they've maybe been finding are not available enough or not available at all to them through their current providers. Really with the NDIS package in Tier 3, it's whatever it takes, and people are delighted with that. Plus the guarantee that it's long term, it's for as long as you're going to need it, even if that's your whole life. It will very much depend on the circumstances at the moment. The key issue for us is the one I've already mentioned, and that is that we've got to get the funding model right here so that it does not depend on withdrawing funding from other services. If in next March that is not yet fixed, I shall be obsessing about that and everything that I say. At the same time, by then, I'm hoping that we've got more evidence from the trial sites of a few hundred more people who've got packages, and talking about the success stories in that area. So Tier 3, I'm confident will keep growing as a success story. The wider implications of that will continue to be a matter of great concern.